Hi, everybody. It's October 20th, 2024, and this is part of my therapy recovery video series from the recovery of watching the BC New Democratic Party, the British Columbia New Democratic Party, lock up my innocent little brother, Paul Kieran, 64, with Down syndrome, and then watch them kill him. He died on April 23rd of 2024. So I just finished the helping with the election, promoting the Conservative Party of British Columbia, which has been reborn. It last held government in 1928, and it last had a member of the legislature in 1978. So I believe it's been 46 years since it's had a member of the legislature. So we went, I can say we because I'm a member, went from 0 to 45 MLAs at least, and perhaps more once the recounts are done, in really about a year and a half. So I just got involved about 10 days ago, and I've never worked so hard on an election campaign in my life. And it was the most thrilling, fulfilling, wonderful experience I think I've ever had. I met so many wonderful people, and I learned some really important things. So here's a few of the facts I learned. As evil as the acting Premier David Eby, as I knew him to be, him having locked up my little brother with no recourse, my innocent little brother, in his group home with no visitors for 588 days, and then killing him. I believe that he was killed with hydromorphone while he was trying to recover from a stroke in Burnaby General. It appeared to me his ventilator was removed, his catheter was removed, his intravenous was removed, and he appeared to be sedated to death. I believe that's what had happened because they knew that the Burnaby RCMP had reopened the investigation into fraudulent and forged power of attorney the BC New Democratic Party government created on February 1st of 2021 to give my brother the COVID-19 shot. So that's what got me involved. I was sort of in a fog of grief after Paul died. Wasn't really conscious of what was going on around me, and then slowly I realized politically there's a whole new, or a reborn new party, the Conservative Party of BC, that's fighting with common sense against the most evil government, in my opinion, in the world. And as I've come to know, the BC New Democratic Party is the most evil government in the world right now. And here's a couple of things that I learned that I didn't know before. David Eby came into the government with a $2.5 billion surplus. He racked up a $9 million debt. So there's British Columbia currently has a $20 billion debt, which represents, as was explained to me by my friend David, who was my driver in our campaign. So he was the driver, I was the runner to deliver campaign materials. But David was an accountant and told me that represents $8,600 debt of every tax-paying citizen in British Columbia. And now British Columbia is one of the most endowed with natural resources places on earth, if not the most. Timber, mining resources, hydroelectric power, And yet David Eby has racked up a $20 billion debt. So that was one thing I found. I also discovered that under the BC New Democratic Party government in the last 7 years, 15,000 British Columbians have died of illicit drug overdoses. And many of those overdoses were with narcotics, opiates, given to them in a program called Safe Supply. So the drugs were given to them by the government itself. So the BC New Democratic Party was the pusher. And that was just one of the facts that blew my mind. The third fact is that this year, officially, the number one cause of death of children aged in British Columbia, aged 10 to 18, is drug overdoses. Wrap your mind around that. So, and then the fourth thing and the most remarkable thing that I learned was that in 2022, the BC NDP government sneakily, and Mike Farnworth as the Solicitor General, who I know personally. I know all these people personally. I met them all. I've asked them for help. Mike Farnworth snuck through a piece of legislation where it's called the Health Practitioners and Occupations Act. Sounds kind of innocuous, right? Okay, this is what it means. This is what it does. If you're a health practitioner of any sort and you discuss with somebody else information that is not along the government line, so you disagree with the government dictates and health information, then this is what can happen to you. You can have a government bureaucrat descend on your office and go through your clients' and your patients' personal files with no warrant. So a warrantless search of your office and your patient records. You can be fined. You can be delicensed instantly without any hearing on the basis of an anonymous complaint. You can be fined up to $200,000, and you can go to prison for up to 2 years. If two doctors, or a doctor and anybody, or a massage therapist, I learned this from somebody who was a massage therapist, registered massage therapist. If you're just sitting and chatting, having coffee with someone, and you express a viewpoint that is different than the government line, the government orthodoxy, the way Galileo expressed a different viewpoint than the church orthodoxy at the time, and he was imprisoned because he said the earth went around the sun, not the other way around. You know how that happened? Okay, same thing. Do you know how they used to think that ulcers were caused by stress? They didn't realize that they were caused by the H. pylori bacteria. Those, and the doctor who discovered it had to fund his own research. The New Democratic Party, socialist commies, David Eby being the most evil, Ceausescu, Romanian Ceausescu kind of evil. If a health practitioner expresses a view different than the government, then they can go to prison for up to 2 years. Now, I'm not practicing as a lawyer anymore, but my understanding is they're going to do the same thing, or have already done the same thing to lawyers. And the problem with that is that it's lawyers' most important critical job is to criticize the government and to say opposite things of what the government says. But they put their livelihood, their licensing on the line. They risk doing that with the same type of legislation. And David Eby is going to dissolve the Law Society, which is an independent body of elected benchers. He's going to dissolve that and put in place a government bureaucracy. So the fundamental freedoms that my uncle fought for, he landed on the beaches of Normandy on June 24th of 1944 and fought his way across Europe to Germany, being twice wounded and winning the Military Cross, the second highest medal for valor in the Commonwealth. So all of the things that he fought for are for naught because of evil David Eby. So this is, and I learned all of this, what I'm telling you, in the last week, just from talking with other Conservative Party of British Columbia fired up volunteers. And I'm a lawyer. I was a lawyer. I practiced law for 23 years. And I didn't know any of this. All I knew is that David Eby locked up my little brother for 588 days, breached our visitation agreement for 173 missed visits, and then killed him. I believe he was killed with medical assistance in dying, which he was not capable of consenting to. So if a $20 billion debt, 15,000 British Columbians dead by drug overdoses, the highest rate, the number one killer of children between the ages of 10 and 18 being drug overdoses, and throwing doctors and lawyers in prison for expressing a view different than the government orthodoxy isn't enough for you to want to throw these socialist, communist, NDP assholes out on their ass. I don't know what is. I've told you guys in these videos my affinity and my love for British Columbia. I came out here in 1971 to pick cherries in Creston, and I fell in love with British Columbia, and I came out here to go to university. I've raised 2 children. I was the first single mom to graduate from the University of British Columbia Law School. I worked as a parking enforcement officer for the city of Vancouver, keeping the streets safe and sane. And I love this province. And we have a Ceausescu type of leader in this evil David Eby and this commie socialist retrograde Soviet Union style government that is literally killing our citizens and putting us all at risk. It just turned British Columbia into a Haiti-like hellhole. So I'm praying to my brother. I'm praying that my brother Paul, I hope he's sainted someday. He should be sainted because he was martyred by this evil government. But I'm hoping that he rescues us, and that through this election, the New Democratic Party is ultimately overthrown, and we get common sense conservatives in place with the core basic Canadian values of peace, order, and good government, with freedom of expression and all the freedoms guaranteed by the Charter. So, Paul, I miss you so much. I worked so hard for you in the last 10 days. I've never worked so hard in my life. And your picture is still hanging in the Conservative Party of British Columbia war room. So let's pray for the elections BC as they preside over deciding who's going to be the next government of British Columbia, and God willing, it'll be John Rustad and the Conservative Party of British Columbia. I love you all.